Okay, we're going to innovate a little bit here. Zakin Draco was on your schedule for right now, and instead we are switching them with Carly Zakin and Danielle Weisberg, who are co-founders of theSkimm. So theSkimm is news that you can use. I'm sure they have a better way to say it, but these are two young women, and at a very early age, which they are still at, they were both really interested in the news. And what they did is what Alan said you should do, is they innovated. They took what exists and they presented it in a better and a new way. So I don't know if any of you, like me, woke up a little bit too early and didn't have time to read the New York Times, but I can tell you what they're saying about the plane from Malaysia. It's still missing. And how do I know that? Because I read theSkimm every day, and you guys should too. So here it is. Here's Carly and Danielle.
Hi, everyone. That was a great introduction. The plane is still missing, unfortunately. I'm Danielle Weisberg.
And I'm Carly Zakin, actually.
And we started theSkimm. So for those of you that aren't familiar with us, theSkimm is a daily email newsletter that breaks down the news. So
you should all sign up for it right now on your phone.
theskimm.com, 2 M's. So Carly and I are longtime friends. We are former NBC News producers. We grew up as news junkies. We were always the kids with our heads in a book or waking up early before school and watching the Today Show. We just loved news, we loved information, and we knew from a very early age that we wanted to follow that career. So we went into journalism. We were producers for NBC News, started as interns, worked all the way through as producers, and loved our jobs, and it was really like our family. But we saw that there was a disconnect between the way people were getting news and the way that they wanted to get news. And as the introduction said, we really came up with the idea of theSkimm, which was a way to make news digestible and informative and really give it to you on the go. So we are a little bit of old meets new. We spend our days running a startup. We are co-CEOs, but we are also the editorial team. So we go over all the news that's out there. We curate a list of stories, and then we break down the headlines into what you need to know to start your day. So we are pretty much your secret weapon.
So I'll go into kind of a little bit more into why we started and who we started for. As Danielle mentioned, we were at NBC News. It was our dream jobs. We aspired to not only be in news, but to be at 30 Rock, and we were living it. And we were longtime friends that reconnected in the building. And as friends do, we would grab drinks and brunch, and we would say, what happens to our careers in 5-10 years? We saw that the industry was changing. We saw, my first day at CNBC was the day Lehman went under. It was a very interesting time to start in this industry, and we were watching before our eyes divisions shutting down and divisions consolidating. And usually the second half of our brunch or drinks or dinner was us sort of swapping stories about how our friends would come to us and they would say, I was so busy all day, what happened in the world today? It's your job to know and keep me informed. And our friends went to great schools, many right around here, and they had great jobs and on paper are what you would call a catch. And they were not getting news in a way that fit into their routine, that catered to them, that they wanted to engage with, that they wanted to do outside of their own time. And so for us, we would see their questions would come especially around big news events, like the State of the Union address. So we would get text messages saying, how do you pronounce the guy sitting behind Obama again? And that's not a name you want to mess up. And they would say, what's happening with this press conference? What's the deal with Syria again? I know there's like a war, but what's the deal? And for us, it was shocking that they didn't love news in the way that we loved it. And once we got over that, we realized, okay, who are our friends? Who do they represent? Who are they? And largely, they are the female millennial that everyone likes to talk about ad nauseum. But for us, when we looked at them, they are the ones that are outpacing men in paychecks and degrees. There are 55 million of them. And they are very well educated, and they are out earning their male counterparts. But statistically, they actually fall behind men in current events knowledge. And that just really upset us on a profound level. So we do not believe that news is gender specific, but we did know that no one was reaching this target demo in a way that we were every day in our own lives. So we realized over time that there was a huge opportunity here. And we were producers not making a lot of money, whose parents really supported us with a lot of love and free dinners, but said, you're on your own with this. And we really started talking to people and saying, how do you start something? Or what would I do to have to start a website? We got to the point where we realized that if we were ever going to do this, now is the time. It was 2012, right before the election. We knew if it didn't work out, we could get a job around the election. And so we were roommates. We realized that would never happen again. So we kind of closed our eyes and quit our jobs.
And to this day, it's the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. We really quit our dream jobs and quit a path where we really had carved out a career for ourselves. We didn't know where we would be in 5 years, but we knew that we would have a job. And as people that graduated in 2008, that is definitely something we didn't take for granted. But we needed to do something that was more fulfilling. And once we saw, the void that was really representative in our friends, we couldn't ignore it. So we knew that we were acting as an information concierge for this demographic, an extremely valuable demographic. So we took a step back and we really looked at their behavior and their normative habits. So we decided to really come up with news that fit in with their routines, which is something that we saw was missing. What our friends weren't doing is reading to the third page of the New York Times. They might have 5 minutes in between a meeting or while going on the subway, and they were scanning the headlines, but they weren't getting the context. And if you don't know why people are fighting in Syria, then any headline about a battle isn't really going to make any sense to you, and it's not really going to pique your interest or keep you coming back for more. So we knew that providing context was very important. The second was a voice that really spoke to you in words and a language that you understood, and that you felt really connected with you and wasn't trying to speak down to you. So we pretty much created the voice of the Skimm, which speaks to our audience in a way that we spoke to our friends. It's meant to sound as if you're sitting next to your friend on the couch and she's just telling you what you need to know for your day. And thirdly, we looked at what we did first thing in the morning and what all of our friends do, which is roll over and check your phone. First thing you do, sometimes I can't even see it, and we look at our email first, and we open the emails that come from friends. So that's really where we wanted to start with this product. So we launched in 2012. It really took off overnight, and we are the fastest growing email newsletter to date. And Carly will tell you a little bit more about the launch in a second, but before we launched, when we were talking to a lot of different people, they all said the same thing, which is, what are you guys doing? This is not going to work. You guys don't have a tech background. You don't have a business background. But more than that, why are you focusing on email? Email's dead. Haven't you heard? It's all about apps. What are you guys doing? And we were like, email's not dead. If you've been in an office and you've really looked at how people communicate, they're on Gmail. They're G-chatting. They might be texting, but they're not really checking apps all day long, but they are sitting at their office, at least for the demographic that we were focusing on, and looking at email all day long. So that's really where we wanted to start. Secondly, we knew we couldn't be everything to everyone. So we focused on a demographic that was really familiar to us, which was women 22 to 34. There's a financial argument to going after them. But at the end of the day, we just didn't want to have such a hugely wide audience. We didn't want to compete with traditional news outlets by trying to be all the news to everyone. So we focused on women 22 to 34 in big cities. And we get questions like, you guys are really narrowing your demographic way too much. And we're like, women, it's not really that narrow of a demographic. half the population. Like, what are we missing in this? And so a lot of people told us, we were ridiculous to focus on women, and we just ignored them. And then thirdly, everyone to this day still doesn't understand why we don't have an app. And it really goes back to the belief that we've created a product that fits in with the routines of our audience. For us, it's also, we want to focus on scaling one product at a time. And that's why we've stayed with email.
Yeah, so as Danielle said, a lot of people told us that we were crazy to pursue this, that they oftentimes would cite the Daily Candy example, which sold for 120 million, which is great, but that would never happen again. And we knew we were creating something different. So for us, as I said, we were roommates, so we still are. So on July 18th, 2012, we sent out an email at 6 a.m. from our apartment. And what happened was a miracle, I would say, because we really did not come from a tech or business background. And while we did our research of how to network and how to build business contacts, we really didn't think about what it was to build a community. And thankfully, our naivete, I think, helped us in the end, because within 2 weeks, we were on the Today Show, Forbes, Business Insider, Financial Times, the head of Vanity Fair, and Dow Jones called us. And everyone said, "You're disruptive." Slate had 3 articles debating about us. And we had no idea what had just happened. And to this date, so that was a year and a half ago, we have become the fastest growing newsletter on the market. We have raised our first seed round, which closed early November. We raised $1.3 million so that we could hire, which we have done. We are no longer a 2-woman team. We are now a 7-person team.
Soon to be 7.
Sorry, soon to be 7. They haven't started yet. We have an office, which was a very big deal for us. And we have had the most incredible national press that I think either of us ever dreamed about. And we say that coming from media and getting how things are pitched, and we never pitched ourselves. What happened was our readers worked at these press outlets, and they would say, I pitched you to my editor-in-chief, and we want to write about you. And so my favorite example was this describes who our demo is so perfectly. In August of the year we launched, we got an email from a woman who said, "I work in publishing. My office talks about drones all the time, and I have no idea what they're talking about, and I don't want to ask." So we became pen pals, and we were explaining to her about drones. We were sending her articles. Flash forward, about 2 months later, she emailed us, "I work at Vanity Fair. We would like you to come in." So we were like, oh, thank God we responded to her. And we went into the office, and they said, "We want to write about you, and we want to throw you your launch party." And for 2 people that actually got turned down for jobs there, that was really a nice full circle.
That was a good moment.
So for us, we kind of pinch ourselves every day of, coming here to speak at things like this, to being able to have a team, to becoming the fastest growing newsletter on the market with engagement that is truly unprecedented. And this is really just the beginning for us.
So one of the things that we have really had to do to be able to be successful entrepreneurs is have extreme focus. Focus in terms of our schedule, focus in terms of our company vision, and how we get there. So this year, our focus is 100% on growth. We are focused 100% on just scaling this email newsletter product that if you guys all sign up, you will get tomorrow morning. And for us, that means user acquisition. So we have decided to focus on the demographic that we go after every day. However, we do see that while focusing on that demographic, we actually skew about 70% female and 30% male. Going back to the fact that we don't believe that news is gender specific. Aside from our logo and aside from the marketing, there is nothing in the content that we feel speaks specifically to a female audience. You won't find women's business or women's health news. You'll just find business or health news. So that's something that's very important to us. We've also seen that we've skewed towards the older end of college. When we started out, we thought we were going to have to do different versions for different niche audiences. And we've seen that actually focusing on this audience has created an aspirational effect for people graduating college that are just realizing all of a sudden that they're going on interviews for the first time. They need to be able to speak about what's going on in a very informed way, and they might not know what people are going to make small talk about in the 5 minutes before your interview starts, but you better be prepared for whatever comes your way. So that's something that we really see as important, and for us, while it's not our main demographic, we really see that it's just important to us as two people that love news, that having the value to stay up with current events and making sure that reading the news becomes part of your day. And obviously in college, that's really where you're cementing those habits. So it's a demographic that we've actually spent a lot of time on and hired a community marketer to solely focus on the demographic. She's creating a college ambassador program for us, which is really just about making sure that our ambassadors on college are informed, they're engaged, and they're talking about the news, and they're telling people about this product that can help them in a lot of different ways. So for us, this year is really just all about making the best product that we can, which is it's coming about in a few different ways. One is hiring people. The second is design. It's something that we're working on. We just rolled out a new design template. And the third is staying true to our demographic. A lot of people have said, why don't you go local? Why don't you go international? For us, it's really about bandwidth. Those are certainly interesting things. They're also things that we have been warned have a lot of pitfalls, especially for a lot of the email newsletters out there, and for a lot of the media sites that all of a sudden had, different versions for every city that's out there, different versions for every thing that you could come across your day. And we don't think that's the answer to our product. We've really found a niche audience and giving them everything they need to know in the morning in your 5-minute commute, and that's where we want to stay.
Yeah, so just kind of breaking down actually what the product is for those of you who haven't seen it. It is an email that comes into your inbox at 6 a.m. every morning. It reads like an email from your friend. We usually have a top story or 2 top stories every day. Today was about Turkey and Russia. And then the bottom is our repeat after me section, and that's kind of our fan favorite. And we take real life scenarios, like what to say online at coffee, or what to say when your coworker steals your stapler, and we put hard and soft news integrated into it. So it becomes very natural and organic to your day. We write about everything from what's happening in Crimea and with the plane to that Kim Kardashian was on the cover of Vogue. Whether or not you care about Kim Kardashian, we don't care. It's that people are talking about it. And so our goal is when you read the email, which you'll be done with in 5 minutes, that you can go to any work event or any social event and talk to anyone about anything. We hated going back to what inspired us was seeing people drop out of certain conversations and why. How stereotypically we would see women not be as engaged with sports or financial news, but want to talk about pop culture. That killed us. So for us, what we're finding is our readers are writing in every day and calling them skim moments. That, oh my gosh, I was talking about North Korea and it was like an out-of-body experience. And we get hundreds, thousands of these notes every single day of people using how we write and the very distinctive voice that we write with, that people are relating to it in a way that they really are using it and relying on it throughout their day. So kind of going back into what our big vision is and really why we are here and why Wendy and Claire were really nice to call us innovators, was that looking at what we are creating, we see that we are really creating news as the first lifestyle brand. And people throw around the word lifestyle brand all the time and very casually. We mean it in the most literal sense possible. How does news become a part of your daily life, specifically your morning routine? So that is what we are going after. So when we get asked, what does the Skimm look like a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? As Danielle said, our focus for 1 year from now is to have the best email that we could have with the largest following that we could possibly have. But our goal 5 years from now is to be a new generation media company that really turned news into a lifestyle brand, that we can own those morning routines of our readers, that you're not only waking up, rolling over, looking at your phone at the Skimm, but the Skimm is helping you as you're thinking about, I need coffee now, I need to get to work now, I'm at work now what? And so, for us, it's really mastering those routines and looking at the normative behaviors of our target user and leveraging it. So for us, this is just the beginning. We are very excited and kind of amazed at what's happened so far.
We're also at MIT, so we would be remiss if we didn't say that we are hiring a developer. And that is definitely high on our list of priorities. So
if you know anyone.
Yes, so.
We can open it to questions if you guys have any. Yeah.
Yeah, so from an educator point of view, clearly strong writing has been really important for you. Can you give, if I want to train the kid that's going to come and take the Skimm down, or is going to, what are the things that you're doing? How are you, like, is it just like, you read the news and you're like, oh, I think this is the most important, or do you have like best practices that you would pass on to someone who's going to?
We're not going to share our secret sauce, but for us, we look at ourselves as translators. We honed a voice very naturally between the two of us as two friends writing on a couch with the idea of we want our friends to read this on their couch in the morning and want them to think about us writing on a couch in the morning. And so we look at it, when we read an article from the AP, it's great journalism, but then how do you break it down? When someone says, just tell me what that article is about, how do you translate that? And so our job is to really boil things down into what do I need to know out of this? What are they saying? We've actually, about the plane, every day for the last week and a half, I would say.
17 days.
17 days. Except for the very beginning, every morning in our repeat after me section, it's what to say when someone mentions the plane. And all we say is it's still missing, because there's so much wrong information out there, misinformation. We're not going to boil that down. That would make us part of the problem. What you need to know is the plane has not been found. And that's what we do. And that's what we do with all our stories.
Yeah.
And so we have this tone that people say, you're sassy, or you're looking at things with this kind of cutesy way. And that's not our intention at all. It's that we break it down sometimes like your sarcastic friend might, but really just because we're giving you what you need to know.
And going back to what you would tell a student from an educator perspective, one of the things that's extremely important to us, and I think what allowed us to be able to start this product specifically, is that we were trained journalists before this. Trained journalists not meeting citizen journalists, no disrespect there, but we went through NBC News Bootcamp. We learned from the best in the business. I've worked overnights, I've worked every shift. I was field producing at the White House at a very early age. We know what it's like to be in a newsroom when you get information coming in and you don't have two sources, and whether you go with it and whether you hold it, and seeing the repercussions firsthand of what happens in both of those scenarios. For us, we're very lucky that we don't have to break news. That is not our model, but we do have to be right. So I think one of the things that we look for in hiring is we don't hire anyone that doesn't have traditional newsroom experience on the editorial side. It is something that we don't think you can get anywhere else, really just kind of living and breathing that in order to be prepared to work on this product.
I'll let Wendy.
Yeah.
Hi. So as you start to scale out and everything, if this is really both of your voices and you've gone through the whole bootcamp and everything, how do you anticipate being able to scale it out to other
It's a great question.
team members who will have
It's
the same
something
voice?
that's actually very pertinent right now, because we actually just hired our first 2 writers. They haven't started yet, but it's something that is really top of mind. What we were very careful to do from the beginning is that if you notice, actually on the site, my name's not on the site, Carly's name is on the site. Our pictures aren't on the site. The voice of the Skimm is not my voice, it's not Carly's voice. It's a voice that we created together with the idea that it could scale without us. So we, over the course of a year, have had interns that we've trained to write in our voice. We have had, freelance people come in that for the sole purpose of having us be able to train people to write in this style. Again, going back to the fact that anyone we hire has to have the background of being able to write in an AP style. I also think if you are a journalist that's worked in any sort of broadcast news, you're writing scripts and you're writing for a voice that's not your own. That's what we've created. It's a voice that's not our own, but our background really allowed us to take the news, write it straight, and then put it into the voice of the Skimm.
What about depth in news? It sounds like just your title, The Skimm, but then when you're describing your choice of articles, even like Kim Kardashian on the cover of Vogue, yes, that was a moment blip, but nobody really cares about that because, I don't know. What about depth of articles and choosing articles that aren't always on the front page? When do you get to articles that are on the 9th or 10th page, but are talking about issues that affect people's community, like education issues and people having, issues where people have to vote and you have to know the issues in a much more dense way where you can cite some statistics and you can't just give a surface, like repeat after me so we can be in the cocktail conversation. I don't know, that doesn't sound like.
Remembering who we're catering to, I would say we have 3 types of readers. We have readers that are very proud to say they really never read the news, and it's been an issue in their professional life, in their relationships, and they write into us and they say, for the first time ever, I'm talking about news and I'm reading it, and I'm actually reading more. Then we have readers who say, I am the person that I read the journal every day, but I don't read anything other than that because I'm in finance. And they're getting stuff outside of that area. And then we have people that say, I read everything, and they read theSkimm as kind of something as a fun supplement, or as almost to kind of test us that we did get rid of everything, and then they tell us that we did. For us, there's nothing more that we want than for people to be engaged in news. That is what our life was about. That is what our mission in doing this was about. But being very realistic about, not everyone feels as passionately about that as we do. And that was what we found. You can have a Twitter account and follow every news source. You leave your desk for an hour, you come back, you've got 400 tweets to follow and catch up on. It is our job to read the papers, to reach to page 10, to find interesting stories that aren't just about Kim Kardashian, but the fact is, if you went to dinner, I went to dinner on Friday night with 4 friends. One person hadn't heard that she was on the cover of Vogue, and someone mentioned it, and she's like, what happened? Tell me what happened. No one wants to have that moment of I'm uninformed. So it is as important for us to have our readers feel that they are well read about what's happening in Turkey or Syria, or understanding about the plane, as it is to know what's happening in pop culture as it's relevant. So we see that we really have become tastemakers with news, but what we love more than anything is discovering stories that people might not find if they're looking at Twitter for 5 minutes.
Also, as part of our model, we do link out to a longer story after everything we write, which is something that's very important to us. It's also not just a story that we found, it's from us reading 12 different articles on the subject, what was the best story? And that's something that we definitely put value on. I also think, to your point about talking about local community stories or things that are going on in their community, that's not our model. We're focusing on national news and international news. And today, as Carly said, there was actually, we didn't really write about Kim Kardashian in Vogue. It wasn't part of our content. It was what to say if someone brings this up. And we changed the subject and talked about something else. But in the same piece, we also talked about Moldova and Russia and how borders are changing after the fall of the Soviet Union. And I don't think that I have a problem, or that our readers have a problem with the same type of content, as pop culture and international news being in the same publication each day.
So we've gotten the benefit of seeing you guys really early in your evolution, which is not usually the case in a startup. You usually hear about the $100 million exit, and then you hear the apocryphal stories that were created. So what I want to ask you about besides that is, what are the apocryphal stories that you think are happening now that you're going to want to look back on?
Oh, that's great. Okay, so, I think the Vanity Fair story. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So this is hopefully a story that we will look back on and think of really fondly. Right now, it's still a little bit too close to home. But so when we did our photo shoot with Vanity Fair, which sounds like a very surreal thing to say, it was, I think, the highlight of anything we've done to date. And they came to our apartment. They came with a moving van. They moved out all of our furniture. It was insane. They were like, the shoot was over, and we were like, oh my God, what just happened to us? And they were like, just go get, can you go to a coffee shop or something? We need to move all of your furniture back in, and you guys just really need to not be in our way. So we were like, okay, we are so exhausted. We'd been up for, I think, 24 hours straight working and just high off of adrenaline. And we went to this really nice restaurant in our neighborhood. And we were like, we have to celebrate. One of the things that we promised ourselves after going halfway through last year is that we would really start to celebrate milestones. And it's something we hadn't placed an emphasis on at all. So we go and we look at the prices on the menu, and we're like, okay, great, well, we can split one glass of champagne. And that will be our celebration, knowing that we weren't making any money, but doing our best to mark the occasion. So the restaurant's empty. It's 3 o'clock on a weekday. And the only person that's sitting in the restaurant is Sarah Jessica Parker. And we were like, are you kidding me? Like, this is just, I mean, this day does not get any better. And we had actually, she lives right by us, so I won't use the word stalk, but we like to run into her. And the time before when we had run into her, we gave her our business card. And so this time we're like, this is fate. We have to say something. And she was like, oh, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you guys. I actually have your business card in the back of my closet.
And I just died.
It's
like, I'm in your closet?
Yeah. Something of ours is in Sarah Jessica Parker's closet. Like, this does not get any better. So it was an amazing day. We go to pay for the split glass of champagne, and our credit card got declined. And
that was our startup life in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that is something we remind ourselves of every day.
Thanks. But we've also kept a blog to really capture those moments week by week. One of the things we talk about a lot is right now it's been really astounding for us to have found people that believe in our vision and our company enough to quit their jobs and to come work for us. And that's something we take really seriously, and the hiring process and the interview process was a very humbling experience, and we learned a ton along the way.
I have a question regarding your goal to grow.
Wait, where are you? Sorry, I can't see.
Sorry,
right,
I'm right here, yeah. I don't go to an office, so my life changes every day. So as much as I would love to have the time, 5 minutes, to read theSkimm every day, sometimes I don't. And I was just wondering if comparative media was in your plan of consideration, because maybe sometimes I like to have it read to me. Sometimes I can archive it for later. Are visuals as part of that plan? Because I would love to see it happen.
We actually intentionally don't have visuals in the newsletter. There are a few reasons why. One of them is visuals actually really cause you to go into spam folders. We have unprecedented engagement, and part of that is because we really don't go into your spam folder, knock on wood. The other reason is, like we said earlier, we really read like an email from your friend, and once we start changing that, it changes that dynamic. So we certainly see the value of visuals. We also, more importantly, see the value of audio, and those are all things on our radar. I will say that they are things that we want to pursue, but it wouldn't be as a part of the daily Skimm as you see it now.
Do you limit yourselves to American sources of information?
No, not at all, actually. And I think one of our proudest moments, which we didn't discuss yet, is we actually just hired someone that came. She's Malaysian from Australia living in London. And we had lunch with her on Friday. And I said, what do you read for when you want news from Malaysia, when you want news when you're in Australia? And we kind of went through every region of, what are her news sources? And they were all of our news sources. It is really important to us, and that goes back to our NBC training, to be diverse with our news sources. I actually don't know what Danielle reads on a daily basis, and she doesn't know what I read. We have a formal pitch meeting every day at 4 o'clock, just like we did at the network. And we pitch each other's stories, but we both, obviously we overlap with mainstream things, but we both read a very, very diverse array of sources. And international is very, very important to us. We're in 14 countries.
We also, actually one of our first editorial hires was a reporter in South Africa. So it's something that we are focusing more and more on as we build out our team.
What's your revenue model?
That's a great question. We are intentionally pre-revenue, and people laugh when we say that, but for us, we raise money to let us have a year and a half to grow. Going back to how we look at news as a lifestyle brand, we will introduce products after that point that will all have different revenue streams attached to it. We have started integrating sponsors into the newsletter, so we actually had the NBA as our first sponsor 3 weeks ago, and we'll continue to do that over the course of the year.
Do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah, we could just say, her question was, we're very clear we're not gender specific, but we are very, very clear that we are generational specific, and many of you are not necessarily in that demo. For us, it was about knowing what to write, who we're writing for. We are that demo, so it was what was most natural for us. It just so happened that is the valuable demo that every advertiser is going after. Every news organization is thinking, how do I get them? For us, it was so natural. We were like, we are them. We do this every day. That was the opportunity we saw at hand. When we looked at the economics behind it, there was no question this is who we have to go after. What's interesting about who we go after, as Danielle kind of referred to before, when we launched, we figured, okay, we'll launch for women 22 to 34. Then we're going to do a male version. Then we're going to do a college version. Then we're going to do a mom version and just keep going up. And then what we realized was that, one, our demo is 70-30 female male. Two, we are huge with college students, and we are huge with moms working and staying at home. And we are huge, I mean, we have readers of all ages. I think we are just very clear when we think about when we're writing every day, what stories we're choosing, the voice that we're choosing. We have to know who we're reading, who we're trying to reach, and who is in our mind, who are we writing for. I think where we see a lot of places fail when they try to do this is trying to be everything to everyone, and you just can't. Not everyone is Facebook, and we're not trying to be. We are very clear who we're going after.
That when a lot of these, big media institutions that we come from and that we love try and create products that speak to the millennial generation, it comes off as inauthentic or it comes off as condescending. So we wanted to start off with a product that was geared towards them from the get-go. We also just saw that we were working, I was working on the nightly news, and none of my friends watched the stories that I produced, which was horrifying, but it was also the truth. So I think, we wanted to come up with something that combated that. And also from the start, we really rejected the notion that our generation didn't care about the news or was lazy or passive. And so we approached it from the perspective of everyone wants to be informed, but everyone is short on time. So how can we tie those two together and come up with something that solves both problems?
Are any of your hires men?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.